What if everything you call reality were just the surface of an invisible ocean of energy? From subatomic particles to distant galaxies, everything vibrates, pulses, moves. Quantum physics reveals to us that matter is merely a temporary condensation of frequencies. Yet the paradox is that even knowing this, you remain trapped in the same circumstances. Why then doesn't your life change, if the foundation of everything is energy and constant flow? Perhaps the answer lies in places you've never dared to explore, in the folds of the mind, in fossilized emotional habits, in the hidden beliefs that silently shape your experiences. Today we'll cross that invisible territory, where science and spirituality meet, to understand why your energy might be vibrating out of sync with your deepest desires, and how to reverse that state. Everything vibrates at different frequencies. Imagine entering a dark room where different musical instruments are stored. You can't see them, but as you clap your hands, the air begins to vibrate, and each object responds in its own way. The drum resounds deeply, the violin whispers high, the metal reverberates metallically. The same happens in the fabric of reality. Each element vibrates in its own rhythm, and this diversity of frequencies creates the spectacle we call the material world. Physics has already shown us that even the chair you're sitting on isn't solid. It's a field of dancing atoms, empty spaces held together by invisible forces. If everything is vibration, then living is essentially tuning in. What many ignore is that it's not enough to know that everything is energy. One must realize that not all energy vibrates at the same rate. A rock has a stable, slow, almost motionless frequency. Water, lighter, transforms into clouds, rain, and currents. Plants receive sunlight and convert it into nourishment, elevating the vibrational level of their surroundings. And you, as a human being, possess the complexity of an organism that not only vibrates but can choose how it vibrates, modulating thoughts, emotions, and actions. When you look at the sky, you see colors that correspond to specific frequencies. Red vibrates more slowly than blue. Ultraviolet, invisible to the naked eye, vibrates even faster. Life organizes itself in a similar way. There are experiences that belong to the lower bands, where fear, apathy, and resentment prevail, and there are higher bands, where courage, clarity, and compassion reside. The common mistake is to believe you can remain in a dense vibrational state and still attract a reality of expansion. That's like trying to hear a radio station without tuning to the right frequency. The signal simply doesn't connect. But what defines the frequency at which you vibrate? It's not just fleeting thoughts that come and go, but the constancy of the inner field you sustain. It's like the beating of a heart that never stops, an invisible pulse emitting signals to the universe. Every repeated memory, every emotion you feed, every word you speak, composes this field. It's not about magic or superstition, but energetic coherence. Science has already shown that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field measurable from several feet away. Imagine, then, the collective impact of billions of such fields interacting. And here arises an important distinction. It's not just raw energy that matters, but the quality of the information contained in that energy. A light bulb and a laser beam are made of the same substance, photons, but the difference lies in organization. The laser is coherent, orderly, precise. The light bulb is diffuse, scattered. Most people live like light bulbs, full of energy, but dispersed in multiple directions, unable to create impact. What drives change is the laser state, when thought, emotion, and intention are aligned in the same frequency, forming a beam of reality that doesn't dissipate. To feel this in your body right now, close your eyes for a moment and sense the vibration within you. Look at your hands. They're not still, no matter how motionless they seem. There is warmth, there is flow, there is movement. Now take a deep breath and imagine that this movement expands beyond your skin, forming a field around you. The more aware you become of this field, the more sensitive you grow to the subtle differences in the energy around you. This perception is the first step in recognizing that you are not isolated, but immersed in a vibratory ocean in constant exchange. There's an ancient story about travelers who crossed deserts carrying crystal goblets. They knew that as they walked, the vibrations of sand and wind could make the crystal sing, The sound was their guide, showing direction and harmony with the landscape. In the same way, your life emits invisible sounds, harmonies or dissonances that echo into the greater field of existence. When you're out of alignment, your inner crystal doesn't sing, it grinds. When you align, the melody flows. It's common to desire quick change, as if thinking positive for a few moments were enough. But real vibration isn't measured in flashes of optimism, it's measured in consistency. If your inner radio spends the day oscillating between static and music, the external reality will merely reflect that instability. Alignment is a continuous process of noticing your own frequency drops and consciously returning to the point of harmony. Now ask yourself, what frequency have you been living at these past years? In what emotions do you bathe daily? Recognizing this inner landscape is like tuning the radio dial before searching for a new station. If you're unclear about what vibrates within you, you can't expect the external reality to change. At this point, the door opens to the next step, understanding that energy and consciousness are inseparable and that the quality of your perception determines the music the universe plays back to you. Energy and consciousness. When you think of energy, you might imagine electricity running through wires, the fuel that powers cars, or the warmth we feel from the sun. But there's a much subtler and more powerful aspect: energy becoming aware of itself. Physics can explain how particles move, but there's a boundary where science and mystery meet. Why does organized matter give rise to subjective experience? This question is one of the deepest of our time. And what if the answer lies not only in neurons, but in the very energy field that makes us up? Consciousness is not merely the act of thinking. Thinking is like the echo of a wave already created, but consciousness is the ocean that allows the wave to exist. Imagine a vast invisible field that permeates everything, and that, when interacting with your individual energy, shapes your perception of the world. It's as if each person were a projector of reality. Energy is the light, and consciousness is the lens that defines the projected image. If the lens is cloudy, reality appears distorted. If the lens is clear, reality becomes sharp. There's a phrase echoed in many spiritual traditions: where your consciousness is, there lies your energy. This means that wherever you place your attention, not only receives energy but is strengthened by it. If you constantly focus on what you fear, your consciousness creates a field that amplifies that fear. If you turn toward what you wish to nurture, the field reorganizes in that direction. But it takes more than superficial desire. Consciousness must be rooted in what it recognizes as truth. A famous experiment by physicists showed that subatomic particles behave differently when observed. When there is no observer, they spread out like waves. When observed, they act like particles, choosing a trajectory. This reveals something unsettling. The very presence of consciousness alters the course of matter. Perhaps the universe isn't a cold stage, but a living field that responds to awareness. This discovery breaks the notion that we are mere passive spectators of reality. We are, on some level, co-creators. To feel this in a practical way, close your eyes for a few moments and bring to mind a memory of genuine joy, perhaps a carefree childhood moment, an unexpected encounter, or an achievement that made your heart leap. Notice how the energy shifts instantly. The body responds, the breath changes, the heart speeds up. Nothing in the external environment has changed, yet the internal reality has transformed. That is consciousness acting upon energy. But here arises a paradox. If consciousness is so powerful, why doesn't it change everything instantly? The answer lies in the depth of its layers. You possess different levels of consciousness: the surface one, which perceives the present moment; the reflective one, which remembers and imagines; and the deep one, which holds ancient memories and invisible patterns. It is at this deep level that the energy truly shaping reality resides, for it is continuous, repetitive, persistent. Thinking about something for a few minutes doesn't have the same power as living immersed in a pattern for years. A metaphor might help. Think of a small flame before a constant wind. No matter how bright it is, without protection, the wind blows it out. In the same way, a fleeting thought cannot sustain transformation in the face of an unconscious field loaded with dense memories. One must light an inner fire, feed it continuously, until the flame becomes stable, resistant to the winds of daily life. This process of stabilizing conscious energy is what creates coherence in life. There is also a collective aspect. Consciousness isn't isolated within one body. It interacts with other fields, overlaps, resonates. When many people sustain the same perception, they create a shared reality. This explains why certain cultures produce similar behavior patterns, or why environments filled with pessimism seem to drain energy, while others, vibrating with enthusiasm, instantly uplift anyone who enters. Your personal energy is shaped by individual consciousness, but also resonates within the collective consciousness. An ancient story tells of a traveler who carried a lit lantern across deserts. He said that the flame was small, but had the power to illuminate vast stretches of darkness. The secret wasn't the size of the flame, but the fact that he kept it lit everywhere, never letting the wind extinguish it. Consciousness is that lantern. When kept alive, even amid chaos, it guides not only the bearer, but all who cross their path. Now realize this. Energy itself is neutral, it is pure movement. It is consciousness that gives it form, color, and organization. If you think you're trapped in an unchanging reality, you may not yet have understood that the lens projecting your experience is clouded. Cleaning that lens is a daily act of awareness, of choice, of presence. Without it, energy keeps vibrating, but randomly repeating old patterns. The question that echoes is, what has your consciousness chosen to illuminate? For it is in that focus that your energy crystallizes, and from that crystallization, the reality you live is born. Hidden beliefs that block. If energy and consciousness shape reality, why does life so often seem frozen, as if nothing moves despite your efforts? The answer lies in invisible beliefs, the ones that live in the mind's underground. They aren't the ideas you defend out loud, but those that hide in the silences formed by old experiences, family memories, traumas, and cultural repetitions. These beliefs work like hidden molds. Energy may flow intensely, but it always meets the same invisible walls, returning to the same pattern. Imagine a mighty river. It carries strength and intensity, but if the riverbed is narrow, the water will always follow the same paths, never spilling into new directions. Hidden beliefs are that riverbed. They set the boundaries for where the energy of your life can flow. You may desire prosperity, but if deep down there is the belief that money corrupts, your energy will reorganize to push away what you consciously seek. You may aspire to a deep relationship, but if you carry the unconscious conviction that love inevitably brings pain, your vibration will create invisible barriers. These beliefs don't appear out of nowhere. Many were planted in childhood, when the mind was permeable to everything that came from adults and the environment. The child, unable to question, absorbs statements as absolute truths. You're not good enough. The world is dangerous. To be accepted, you must suffer. Words like these, repeated or even merely implied, become underground roots that decades later still influence choices. There is an old parable about an elephant that, from a young age, was tied by a thin rope to a stake in the ground. When it tried to escape, it couldn't break free. It grew up believing it was trapped. As an adult, the same rope, now ridiculously fragile compared to its strength, kept holding it, not because it was capable, but because the belief was etched in its mind. So it is with us. We possess energy, consciousness, and power, but we carry invisible ropes that could already have been broken if we weren't hypnotized by old beliefs. What's curious is that these beliefs don't show up only as clear thoughts, but as recurring sensations and automatic reactions. You may tell yourself you believe in success, but if, when faced with an opportunity, your body withdraws, your voice falters, and your mind sabotages you, it's a sign that your deeper energy is vibrating in another direction. The hidden belief is not revealed by what you declare, but by what you involuntarily repeat in your life. To perceive these layers, a simple exercise can be done right now. Close your eyes for a moment and choose an area of your life that seems stagnant. Ask silently, what do I believe deep down about this area? Let the answer arise not as logical reasoning, but as a whisper, a sensation, a memory. Perhaps an image of someone from the past appears, a phrase, or a memory that seemed forgotten. This glimpse is the tip of the thread that leads underground, By bringing it to light, you begin to dissolve the hidden power that this mold exerted over your energy. But here a crucial point emerges. Many people believe it's enough to think differently to transform these beliefs. However, they are imprinted in emotional and bodily layers, not just mental ones. It's like trying to change a river's course by merely imagining a new route without digging the terrain. The belief needs to be felt, faced, and reframed. It's not about fighting it, but bringing awareness to the mold and replacing it with a new riverbed where energy can run. Family stories illustrate this clearly. How often does a pattern repeat across generations? Bankruptcies, illnesses, abandonments, silences. It's as if the belief were not only individual, but inherited, inscribed in the family field. As long as no one questions it, it continues shaping destinies. But when someone stands up and says, "It doesn't have to be this way," an energetic opening appears through which transformation can enter. It's also necessary to understand that there are no neutral beliefs. All of them emit vibration, all of them direct energy. Some open paths, others close them, some expand, others compress. The great mistake is to live on autopilot, unaware that the invisible walls of your world are not natural but constructed. When you question these walls, something breaks, and the energy that was once contained begins to find new exits. Now, turn inward. Which ropes still hold you? Which phrases spoken years ago still echo within you as if they were absolute truths? Recognizing these voices is not weakness, but courage, because only by seeing them clearly can you free the energy that was imprisoned. And here a bridge to the next step appears. If hidden beliefs block, it is dense emotions that keep the body and mind vibrating in that same state. Freeing yourself from the molds is only the beginning. The next challenge is learning to transform the emotional quality that sustains your frequency. Dense emotions and vibration. If hidden beliefs build the molds of your reality, emotions are the fuel that brings those molds to life. In them, energy either densifies or expands. Dense emotions such as fear, anger, shame, or resentment act like invisible weights that keep your frequency low, even when your mind wishes to rise. It's like trying to take flight with chains around your feet. No matter how hard the wings flap, the body doesn't leave the ground. Science has already shown that different emotional states alter the body's chemistry. Prolonged fear constantly activates the alert system, flooding the organism with stress hormones. This repetition not only wears you down physically, but also creates a chaotic energetic field that hinders the harmonious flow of vitality. In the same way, emotions like gratitude and joy activate circuits that restore balance, increasing cardiac and brain coherence. In other words, emotional quality is directly proportional to vibrational quality. Imagine a glass of pure water. If you pour in dark ink, clarity is lost. The same happens to your energy. Each dense emotion is like a drop of ink that clouds the transparency of your field. When accumulated, these drops form a thick, heavy liquid that is difficult to flow. The curious thing is that many people get used to living in this state and believe it is their nature. But in truth, it is just an emotional crystallization that can be dissolved. Spiritual traditions have always understood this impact. Some describe dense emotions as clouds that cover the light of consciousness. Others compare them to stones tied to the body during a dive. The symbolism is clear. Without releasing the weight, there is no lightness, and without lightness, there is no vibrational ascent. What is often neglected is that repressing emotions is not the same as transforming them. Storing resentment in the back of the mind is like sweeping dust under the rug. The dirt remains, shaping the environment invisibly. A Sufi story tells of a traveler who carried a sack of stones. He complained about the weight, but when someone suggested opening the bag and throwing them out, he hesitated, saying, "These stones are mine. They're part of my journey." We do the same with dense emotions. We identify with them as if they were an essential part of who we are. The process of transformation begins when we understand that to feel is not to be. Emotions are movements of energy. We are the consciousness that can allow or dissolve those movements. A simple exercise can help you feel this difference. Close your eyes and bring to mind a recent situation that stirred irritation. Notice where this emotion manifests in the body, the chest, the stomach, the throat. Breathe deeply, and as you exhale, imagine the density shifting like a cloud dissipating in the wind. This isn't about denying what happened, but releasing the energetic buildup the emotion left behind. Repeat until the sensation becomes lighter. This symbolic gesture teaches the body that no emotion needs to be a prison, all can be movement. It's important to notice that dense emotions don't arise by chance. They feed on the stories you repeat to yourself. Resentment, for example, is sustained by a narrative of injustice that never lets go. Fear relies on memories of past failures projected into the future. Anger grows when the mind keeps reconstructing threat scenarios. That is, dense emotion is always fueled by an interpretation, not by reality itself. When consciousness interrupts that narrative, the emotional fuel runs out. Another rarely discussed dimension is that dense emotions create mutual attraction. When you vibrate in guilt, you unconsciously connect to situations that reinforce that pattern. It's like a tuning that seeks more of the same frequency. Thus, emotional energy not only shapes your inner state, but also selects the types of external experiences that align with your field. That's why life so often seems to repeat the same scenes. It isn't blind fate, it's emotional resonance. However, each dense emotion also carries within it the seed of a strength. Fear can be transmuted into prudence, anger into clear boundaries, sadness into compassion. It's not about eliminating emotions, but learning to transform them into subtler vibrations. This inner alchemy is what distinguishes those who live imprisoned from those who learn to use their own energy as a springboard. Now look within. Which emotions have been most constant in your life? Which ones repeat like background music you didn't choose to hear? By recognizing this pattern, you gain the key to transform it. For external reality ultimately only reflects the music you are emitting internally. And here a portal opens to understand the next point. If dense emotions lower your frequency, there is a power that can reorient your energy immediately. The power of attention. What you fix your inner and outer gaze upon has the capacity to change the entire field in a matter of moments. The power of attention. If up to now we have seen how frequencies, consciousness, beliefs, and emotions influence reality, we now arrive at a central key: attention. It is the lens through which energy concentrates, the focus that turns a diffuse field into a specific direction. Attention is like a spotlight on a dark stage. Whatever it illuminates becomes alive, becomes present, gains strength, and what remains outside the light gradually loses relevance. This is why even amid infinite possibilities, you only experience what you place your inner gaze upon. Cognitive science has already shown that the brain cannot consciously process all available information. Every second we are flooded with visual, auditory, tactile, and emotional stimuli. But attention acts as a filter, selecting only a small part to compose the picture of experience. In other words, the world you believe you live in is actually a chosen fraction of the whole. This constant cropping is not random. It is guided by your predominant habits, beliefs, and emotions. But here there is a powerful shift. If attention is a choice, then the reality you perceive can be consciously shaped. The challenge is that most of the time you don't choose, you simply react. The mind, trained for years, learns to fixate on the negative, on the problem, on fear. And by fixating, it amplifies. What could have been just a spark of worry becomes a fire, not because it was large, but because it received the precious fuel of your attention. A metaphor can illustrate this. Think of a magnifying glass under the sun. The light is abundant, scattered, but when the magnifying glass focuses it, the heat concentrates enough to ignite a leaf. Attention works the same way. Dispersed, it warms slightly. Concentrated, it transforms. If you go through life spreading your focus in multiple directions, worries, distractions, noise, your energy dissipates. But if you can center your attention on a clear direction, the energy creates real combustion capable of generating change. In practice, this can be felt in the body. For a few seconds, try fixing your attention only on your breathing. Nothing else matters, just the air going in and out. Soon you'll notice the internal flow change. The mind slows down, anxiety decreases, the body responds with greater presence. This happens because attention reorganizes not only thought, but the vital energy that sustains it. Wherever you place your gaze is where life reorganizes. But it's important to understand, attention is not neutral. It carries the charge of the emotion with which it connects. If you look at a challenge with despair, the energy becomes dense. If you look at the same challenge with curiosity or courage, the energy expands. So it's not enough to simply pay attention. You must observe the quality of your gaze. Reality doesn't change just because you focus, but because you focus with a certain vibration. A symbolic example. In some Eastern monasteries, monks train for hours by simply observing the flame of a candle. The exercise looks simple, but its purpose is deep. By learning to fix attention on a single point, they train the mind not to get lost in dispersions. More than discipline, this practice reveals the nature of inner power. When attention is full, even the most fragile flame becomes an inner sun. You can see how attention shapes your life by reflecting on what has occupied your mind in recent weeks. Which images, words, memories, or worries have repeated themselves? That is the ground where your energy is being cultivated. There is no neutrality. Where your attention rests, your reality is built. Therefore, if you want transformation, it is essential to learn to withdraw attention from patterns that drain you and place it on those that expand you. And here is a secret. Attention doesn't need to be forced. It can be trained through presence. The more you allow yourself to be in the moment, the less you get lost in mental labyrinths. Being present is not the absence of thought, but a choice of focus. When your attention rests in the now, the energy field rebalances and new frequencies become accessible. Now, I leave you with an invitation. Notice today, throughout the day, how many times your attention gets lost in distractions or anxieties that add nothing. And each time you notice it, simply bring it back, even if only to the rhythm of your breathing. This constant returning is like pulling the rudder of a boat that insists on drifting. Little by little, you adjust the course and reach the other shore. And since we're talking about the power of directing attention, I want to propose a collective exercise. When this video ends, leave a comment writing the phrase, "My attention creates my reality." This will not be just a statement, but an act of awareness. And if this content brought clarity, like it as well, so that this energy may expand and reach other people who need to adjust the focus of their lives. Subconscious is key. Up to this point, we have explored energy, consciousness, beliefs, emotions, and attention. But there is an even deeper layer that silently governs most of your reality, the subconscious. It is like the foundation of a house. You can decorate the rooms, paint the walls, change the furniture, but if the base is cracked, everything you build on top will be unstable. The subconscious is this invisible base supporting thoughts, emotions, and behaviors you don't even consciously notice. Neuroscience studies estimate that more than 90% of our decisions are made outside the radar of the rational mind. This means that when you believe you are choosing freely, in many cases you are merely repeating patterns that were already programmed in deep layers. This realization is unsettling, as it shows that many people's lives are not the result of new choices, but of old, almost automatic repetitions. A metaphor may help. Imagine a theater. The stage represents consciousness, lit, visible, where the actors perform before the audience. But backstage, hidden by the curtains, there are directors, set designers, lighting, and sound technicians. They don't appear, but they determine how the play will be presented. The subconscious works the same way. While consciousness believes it is leading, hidden forces are the ones determining the narrative. This is the point where many get frustrated. You decide to change, set goals, repeat affirmations, but weeks later you return to the same pattern. It's not a lack of willpower. It's that your subconscious programming is stronger than your conscious intention. Energy follows the most stable base, and that base is the hidden repertoire recorded throughout life. These recordings begin early. Every striking childhood experience, every intense emotion, every cultural repetition is registered and filed. The subconscious does not judge whether something is good or bad. It simply stores it. If a child heard countless times that they needed to work twice as hard to be accepted, that message becomes an internal law. If someone lived through situations of rejection, The subconscious records the expectation that rejection will repeat. And without noticing, adult life begins to align with these records. But the subconscious is not an enemy. It exists to protect, automate, and save energy. The problem is that many of these programs were created in past contexts and no longer serve the present. It's like using an old map to navigate modern roads. You may move, but you always get lost. Transforming reality, therefore, is not just about changing thoughts, but about updating the subconscious map. An exercise can illustrate this idea. Close your eyes for a moment and choose an important desire you hold today. Now observe the first sensations that arise: enthusiasm, fear, doubt. If the predominant sensation is impossibility, that is a sign that the subconscious holds records contrary to the desire. The body speaks before the mind. It reveals what is recorded in the hidden layers. Transformation stories show that when someone manages to access and reprogram the subconscious, deep changes occur in a short time. It's as if the river that once followed a narrow bed found new banks and suddenly flowed in an unexpected direction. Techniques such as visualization, deep meditation, hypnosis, and even ancient contemplative practices have been used for centuries to dialogue with this invisible territory. Modern science is beginning to confirm what ancient traditions already knew, that the subconscious is the key that opens or closes vibrational doors. There is a legend about a secret garden hidden behind walls. Many tried to cross but gave up when they found the gates closed. Only those who discovered the key could enter and find rare flowers that did not grow anywhere else. The subconscious is that garden. In it are hidden treasures, but also weeds that grow unchecked. Those who learn to use the key not only discover beauty, but also take on the responsibility of tending what grows there. It is essential to understand that the subconscious does not understand logical language. It responds to images, repetitions, and intense emotions. That is why symbolic experiences or sensory practices have such power over it. Each time you vividly visualize a desired scenario, especially when associated with positive emotions, you plant new seeds in the hidden soil. Repetition and intensity are the waters that irrigate this garden. However, it is not enough to only plant. It is necessary to pull up the old roots that still hold energy in repetitive patterns. The simple act of bringing hidden beliefs and memories to light already begins to weaken them. The more consciousness illuminates what was once shadow, the more space opens for new records. This process requires courage because the subconscious often stores pains we prefer to forget. But running away does not dissolve, it merely perpetuates. Now reflect. What old stories have been quietly guiding your life? Which internal laws do you obey without even noticing? Recognizing these voices is like finding the rusty key that opens the gate to the secret garden. The choice to use it or not is yours, but one thing is certain. As long as it remains forgotten, reality will keep repeating the same paths. And it is precisely by uniting this key of the subconscious with conscious action that a true bridge to transformation is created. Because it is not enough to access the garden. You must also act in harmony with what was discovered, ensuring that the new seeds bloom. Aligned conscious action. After understanding that the subconscious silently shapes much of your reality, an inevitable question arises. How do you turn this knowledge into real movement? The answer lies in aligned conscious action. It is not enough to merely recognize hidden patterns, visualize different futures, or feel higher emotions. If these states are not embodied in gestures, choices, and attitudes in the concrete world, energy continues to circulate without taking root. Action is the bridge between the inner vibration and tangible reality. Many confuse action with excessive effort. They believe that acting means fighting circumstances, forcing results, wearing themselves out. However, conscious action is not synonymous with blind effort, but with coherence. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and decisions move in the same direction. Imagine a crew of rowers. If each rows at a different rhythm, the boat spins in circles. But when everyone rows in unison, the vessel cuts through the water with ease. Life is like this when you act in alignment. There is no waste of energy. There is flow. This coherence does not mean the absence of challenges, but the presence of clarity. The person who acts consciously knows why they are moving in a given direction. They may face obstacles, but they don't get lost, because each step carries the vibration of purpose. This generates an invisible force that sustains them even when circumstances seem unfavorable. It is like an inner compass, always pointing north. A common mistake is believing you must wait until everything aligns before acting. This endless wait keeps many people stuck in a cycle of stagnation. The truth is that alignment is built in action, not before it. By taking small steps consistent with the new vibrational pattern, you send signals to the subconscious and to the energetic field that a new route is being chosen. It is in this process that the river changes course. A metaphor may help. Think of a tightrope stretched between two banks. You are on one side wanting to cross. The rope represents your intention, your inner vibration. But crossing requires real movement, even if uncertain. Each step on the rope is a conscious action, and it is precisely the act of walking that maintains balance. If you stand still too long, fear takes over and a fall becomes almost certain. It is movement that sustains the crossing. It is important to see that conscious action does not mean perfection. Often it begins with uncertain steps, small choices that break automatic patterns. The difference lies in the quality of presence in each gesture. Paying an old debt, having a long postponed conversation, starting a shelved project, even reorganizing a physical space. Each act, when imbued with aligned intention, is like planting a new stake in the ground of reality. These small seeds of action, when watered, sprout into visible results. A practical exercise can be done now. Think of something you want to change in your life. Instead of imagining the entire transformation, ask yourself, what is the smallest gesture I can make today that aligns with this new frequency? It might be sending a message, writing one page, walking for 10 minutes, refusing a harmful habit. By acting, even on a small scale, you prove to yourself that the new vibration is not just theory, but practice. This proof feeds the subconscious, which begins to accept the new route as true. An old story tells of a traveler who wanted to cross an unknown forest. He had no map and no guarantee of safety, but he had a lit torch. The flame illuminated only a few steps ahead, never the entire path. If he had waited to see the whole road before walking, he would have remained still forever. But by trusting and taking the first step, he discovered that with each movement the torch revealed a little more. So it is with conscious action. It does not require knowing all the details in advance, only the next gesture in harmony with the chosen direction. Another essential point is understanding that aligned action does not oppose the universal flow. On the contrary, it relies on it. Many times you act at cross purposes because you are fighting the current. This generates weariness and frustration. When action is born from inner alignment, it finds resonance in the surrounding field, and opportunities begin to appear as if by coincidence. But in truth, they are synchronicities. It is like rowing in the same direction as the river. The effort continues, but the current helps instead of hindering. Now reflect. Which actions have been sustaining the frequency you want to live in? Which daily attitudes confirm what you claim to want? There is no transformation without concrete steps. Energy needs to be anchored in real choices, or it will remain in the realm of desire. And this is where we arrive at a crucial synthesis. For action to be truly transformative, it must be united with coherent thoughts and emotions. This tripod is what supports a changing reality. In the next step, we will see how to definitively align thought, emotion, and action so that energy stops dispersing and begins to crystallize into new forms of life. Alignment of thought, emotion, and action. Up to now, we've explored each layer of the energetic process, the vibration of frequencies, consciousness, beliefs, emotions, attention, the subconscious, and conscious action. But there is a point where everything converges, the alignment between thought, emotion, and action. This tripod is the foundation of coherent manifestation. When one of them is out of alignment, energy disperses. When all three move together, a magnetic force is created, capable of consistently altering reality. Imagine for a moment an orchestra. If the violins play one melody, but the trumpets follow another, and the percussion keeps its own rhythm, the result is chaos. But when all the instruments follow the same score, harmony emerges. The same happens within you. Thought is a mental melody. Emotion is the vibration that colors that melody, and action is the rhythm that translates it into the world. Without harmony, life sounds like noise. With harmony, it becomes music. What usually happens is that people think one thing, feel another, and do something entirely different. Someone may desire prosperity, yet feel guilty when receiving money and act in ways that sabotage opportunities. Another may desire deep love, yet feel afraid of rejection and act by distancing themselves from those who approach. This incoherence creates conflicting energy fields that cancel each other out. Reality, in this case, doesn't fail to move because of a lack of energy, but because the energy is divided in opposite directions. Science has already shown that the heart and brain emit electrical and magnetic fields that constantly interact. When thought and emotion are in conflict, these fields fall into disorder, creating physiological incoherence. But when thought is positive and the corresponding emotion is cultivated, both synchronize, generating coherence. This coherence is not just an internal feeling of well-being, it is a clear energetic signal capable of influencing the surrounding environment. To feel this, do a brief experiment now. Think of something you deeply desire. Notice if, as you think of it, genuine enthusiasm arises, or if a contrary emotion appears, such as doubt or fear. Then ask, what action have I been taking toward this? If there is no correspondence among the three levels, it's a sign of misalignment. When there is congruence, the body relaxes, the heart expands, and a natural sense of flow arises. This state cannot be forced. It must be cultivated with authenticity. An ancient metaphor speaks of three rivers flowing in different directions. Each represents one aspect: mind, heart, and hands. While they flow separately, the water is lost in distinct valleys, but when they meet at a common point, they form a mighty river capable of turning mills and nourishing fertile lands. Alignment is exactly that, the union of three once dispersed forces, now running in the same direction, multiplying the power of creation. The challenge is that rational thought often tries to impose a path that does not correspond to true emotion. The mind says, "I can," but the heart cries out, "It's not safe." In this conflict, action usually follows emotion because the body is moved by deeper vibrations than surface-level ideas. That's why transforming alignment is not only about changing thoughts, but also about re-educating emotions, cultivating inner states that support new realities. This cultivation requires practice. It's not enough to simply visualize a desired future. It's necessary to feel that future as if it were already happening and act in harmony with it. When the body experiences the emotion of what the mind imagines, energy begins to reorganize. And when each daily gesture confirms that vision, the subconscious begins to accept the new pattern as natural. At that point, transformation ceases to be a possibility and becomes an inevitability. A story illustrates this power well. It tells of an artisan who, while creating a sculpture, didn't just think of the final form. He felt it in his heart, as if it were already alive, and with each hammer strike, he confirmed that vision. Thought, emotion, and action were united in a dance. That's why his works were not only beautiful, they carried presence as if they breathed. The same happens in life. When creation happens in alignment, the result carries vitality and truth. Now ask yourself, in which area of your life do the three rivers still run separately? Where does your mind desire something, but your heart resists, and your actions contradict it? The answer to that question reveals where your energy is fragmented. And remember, it is not the amount of effort that transforms, but the quality of coherence. A small action, when aligned with thought and emotion, has more power than 1,000 disconnected gestures. The path to changing reality begins with harmonizing these three forces, and when they finally meet, the once dispersed energy condenses into a single magnetic, creative vibration. In this state, you understand that external reality is merely a reflection of the music you are already playing within. In the next and final step, we will dive into the conclusion, not as an ending but as an echo that continues vibrating within you, so that this music doesn't cease at the end, but keeps resonating in every choice you make. Everything you live is not static, but the pulsating reflection of the energy that sustains your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Reality is not an impenetrable wall. It is a living field that responds to your frequency. When you allow yourself to observe hidden beliefs, dissolve dense emotions, direct your attention, access the subconscious, and act in alignment, you discover that the external world is not an enemy, but a mirror of your internal coherence. Transformation does not happen in a magical instant, but through the constancy of living each day with vibrational presence. Now, if this journey resonated with you, write in the comments, "I choose to align my energy," so I'll know you made it this far. And if you want more content like this, subscribe and continue this journey with me.